Hey everybody, it's Anna and welcome back to my booktube channel. This video is going to be my Geekly wrap-up for the week of June 1st through June 7th, and what a week this was. This is the week that led up to our big move. It was also the week of the Queer Lit Readathon. It was also the week of the Make Your Myth Taker readathon. The other readathon that I've been doing started this week, and that's a month-long readathon. So this week I ended up reading a total of 3 books. One of them was an audiobook that I listened to. And again, this is going up later, but I am going to make sure that I am continuing to link resources in the description box for how you can help support the Black Lives Matter movement, both now and going into the future, because as you have seen probably, recent events mean that that is now something that everybody is talking about and no one can ignore, which is a good thing. So, oh yeah, also the Blackout Buddy read. Just on the off chance that you didn't see that in my earlier videos, that is a readathon that is going until Juneteenth, which is the 19th of June. If you don't know what that is, Google is free and you should really look it up. But yeah, that is a readathon where we are going to be reading 2 books, White Fragility and White Rage, and then discussing them. There's going to be a live town hall and everything like that. So details for that will be found down below in the description box. But I just wanted to mention that on the off chance that this is the first video you're watching in a while. I know I have a lot of new subscribers here. Hello, welcome. I'm happy to have you. So let's go ahead and talk about the books that I read this week. So the first book that I read was the audiobook of Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. Oh Lord, this made me cry. Oh man, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. So I had been hearing that it is really great to listen to the audiobooks of Elizabeth Acevedo's because she writes novels that are very poetic, and this one is an actual novel in verse. It was also multicast, and one of the characters was read by Acevedo herself, and then one of the characters was read by a different narrator, and it was so good. So this is the story of 2 sisters, Camino and Yahaira, who have the same father but different mothers, and they don't know of each other's existence. So Camino is the one that lives in the Dominican Republic, and Yahaira lives in New York City. And one day when their father is traveling on a plane from New York City to the DR, the tail of the plane snaps off and everybody that was on that flight dies because of the plane crash accident. This is actually based on a historical event, which I didn't realize until I read the author's note at the very end of the book. But yeah, that is a real thing. So then when their father dies, things get complicated because people find things like marriage certificates and wills and all of these other things, and he had kept these families secret from each other and isolated from each other for a really long time. So it ends up becoming, I'm getting choked up, this amazing story of 2 sisters that don't even know of the other's existence, find out about each other through the worst possible circumstances, and are trying to come to terms with the fact that they both lost their father, with whom they each had a very different and very difficult at times relationship, but they have gained a sister. And oh my gosh, I don't even know what else to say to recommend this book to you, just that it made me cry. It was fantastic. There were just so many sentences that I wish that I could have them imprinted on my heart. That is how deeply this book touched me. As someone who is the oldest of 4, the relationship that I have with my sisters is one of the most important in my life, and so stories about sibling relationships really, really touch me, and I cannot recommend this book enough. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I think y'all should read it and love it. The next book that I read, which was my last read for the Asian Readathon, I ended up finishing it a little bit later than intended, but that is The Library of Legends by Janie Chang. This was a book that was really good. It reminded me a lot of, if you were a fan of historical fiction novels that have some elements of the fantastical or the mythical, I thought it read very similarly to The Bird King by G. Willow Wilson, which is a book that is about the Spanish invasion of the Southern Iberian Peninsula and taking over the the Muslim Caliphate that were the rulers there in this like change in regime. This was very similar because it's about China during World War II, and it is about a group of university students that are called Minghua 123 because there are 123 of them. And they are basically like fleeing ahead of the Japanese land invasion, and they've been tasked with carrying these books that make up the Library of Legends. Just kidding. Yeah, the two main characters, Leon and Xiao, are kind of these reincarnations of characters from Chinese mythology as well. And there's also another character, Sparrow, who is literally like a deity that assumes human form in order to help preserve these cultural treasures. This was a little bit different than I expected it to be. I don't know what I really expected from a book that was like a war story, but it was very sedately written compared to how I thought it would be. I definitely thought this was going to be a much faster paced, like race against the clock type thing, but it wasn't. It was very contemplative and it was very meditative. And I really learned a lot about this period in history, which I didn't know too much about. Like, when I was in school, basically the only discussion we had about China and World War II was, yeah, the giant country of China and like the Chinese army absorbed a lot of the Japanese land forces. So let's get back to talking about the Japanese versus the Americans in the Pacific. And I just didn't really know that much about what went on in China during World War II. And obviously this is historical fiction, so I need to actually go and read more nonfiction books about it. But this definitely did make me interested in going and doing that and reading a lot more. So I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I would recommend it. Okay, and then the last book, look at this. I have this bookshelf here now so that when I talk about my books, it's awesome and I can just grab them. I love it. The last book that I read this week was The Inquisitor's Tale, or The Three Magical Children and Their Holy Dog by Adam Gidwitz and illuminated by Hatem Ali. This book was real good. This was the first book that I read for the Make Your Myth Taker readathon. I'm doing the jester prompts, and the first prompt for the jesters is to read a book that is a fun middle grade. I definitely thought this was going to be more fun and less serious, and then it ended up being a little more serious than I realized, because it is essentially taking these 3 children who are all outcasts from the typical like white Christian medieval European society. One of them, Jeanne, is a young girl that has these fits, which might be like epileptic seizures or something similar, that lead her to have these visions of the future, visions of things that come true, and she is under suspicion a lot of the time as a witch or as being like a bewitched child somehow. There is also William, who is a mixed-race boy. His mother is black from North Africa, and his father is a white crusader. And he is a young monk, I guess, like a novice maybe. And he is like the strongest monk in the world. He can do any feat of strength, and he is also really smart, and he likes to debate things in his school, and people are always telling him he needs to know his place. And then there's Jacob, who is a young Jewish boy who has like magical healing powers or something like that. And the other thing that I didn't realize about this is that I can also count it for my my Myth Taker book within a book prompt, because the titular inquisitor is somebody that is chasing down these children, which you don't find until the very end, because the children have taken it upon themselves to go on this quest to rescue a bunch of Talmuds, which are like the books of Jewish law, from being burned by King Louis of France. This is also based off of a real-life thing that happened where essentially in order to save the lives of a lot of Jewish people, a bunch of Jewish leaders went to King Louis and said, okay, like if you'll spare the Jewish people, we'll just give you like these books and you can like destroy our holy books. And it was more complicated than that. And of course there was coercion involved because Europe, especially during the Middle Ages, is notoriously anti-Semitic, and something on the order of like 12,000 of these irreplaceable books were burned and destroyed. And it frankly didn't stop anybody from, you know, burning down Jewish villages and killing Jewish people as well. So the kids are trying to save these books, and the Inquisitor is hot on their heels. He is traveling right behind them, hearing stories of all of these miraculous things that they can do, which he thinks are heresy because he is an inquisitor. It is his job to, you know, stamp down any sort of religiosity that is not part of the official, like, Roman Catholic Church doctrine. And as he listens to stories of what these kids have been up to, he gradually starts to maybe broaden his interpretation of what can be considered holy or sacred and, like, what people are worth saving and such. So this book was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was very well researched. I always love when books, like, include the bibliography, especially when it's a book that's written for children. Like, I don't think that this is a kid's book per se. I think it's shelved in the kids section, but I think anyone could read this and enjoy it and really find a lot of meaning in it. And yeah, like I said, it comes with a bibliography and notes, and it's also illuminated just like a medieval manuscript, which I think is awesome if you look here. Because illuminations are not just pretty to look at, but they are actually a really important part of literacy during this time. So that's what I've got to say about that. So, those are all of the books that I read this week. No board games this week, not really any video games either. I'm anticipating that as we get more settled in this new place and I figure out what's going on with my setup and fill all of my shelves and stuff like that, that I will have more of those to talk about. So please do let me know if you are participating in any of these readathons. I'm pretty sure a fair number of you did the Queer Lit Readathon. Did you read anything good for that? I would love to know in a comment down below. If you like this video and you'd like to see more of what I do, go ahead and subscribe to my channel because that is the best way to find out every time I post a new video. And as always, thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!